Firstly, welcome guys. Now, when I was preparing to talk to you this evening, I was trying to think of what kind of information I should be providing you. And over the course of about an hour, I kept coming back to the same thing, which is why don't I give you the exact same information I gave to the board of the Peel Development Commission the other day. The reason why I want to do that is one, transparency, and two, because it gives you an overview of the entire situation since pretty much mid-March. And also I've got some information from across regional WA, not just here in the Peel. So what I've got in front of me is a raft of, I guess, percentages and some data that's been gathered from roughly about 6 or 7 surveys that have been conducted, not only by us, but also by regional chambers, RemPlan, whose data feeds directly into the ABS statistics, and also CCIWA's surveys that they've been conducting. So I'll start off with what the real, I guess, trigger point was for us. Now, from my discussions with many businesses, pretty much during March, I would say, many said that the trigger point for them when they actually started to realise that this COVID-19 thing, which is what they called it then, the thing, was serious, was when the Channel 7 Crab Fest got cancelled. At that point, people started thinking that that was the worst that could possibly happen, and it wasn't going to get any worse than that. However, things drastically changed over the weeks to come, and people soon started realising that business pretty much wasn't going to be the same that it has been. Now, during the first couple of weeks of March, we saw over 2/3 of businesses had massive disruptions to their supply chains. By the end of March, 85% of businesses had seen a significant increase in cancellations of all future bookings. Now, at that point, anybody who was operating in the entertainment industry had seen an immediate loss of 100% of all future work. So I'm talking event planners, photographers, those kind of businesses. So along with tourism, who started being hit around the 25th, 26th of January, that industry suffered significantly very, very early on. Now, at that point, in mid-March, 95% of businesses that we surveyed indicated that 2020 was basically a write-off. However, it's not all bad news. Of all of the businesses who indicated that they had seen a drop-off in services like bookings, and also, I guess, what's the other word I'm looking for? No, I'll just go with bookings for now. Over half of them indicated that they only suffered about a 25% loss, or a quarter. 30% indicated that they hadn't actually been affected by any of the issues that COVID-19 brought up in the immediate to short term. And over 40% of our businesses had already had either a crisis management or a continuity plan that they had in place and enacted. And thankfully, the resource sector had been largely unaffected. And I would put whilst I'm not a massive fan of our reliance on our resource sector, that's probably the one thing that has kept WA going from a state economic point of view. And it will continue to, considering some of the data that KPMG's recently put out. So as we began to get to the end of March, and we started weathering the storm, so to say, a lot of the sentiment turned from uncertainty and panic to actual assessment and planning phases. Now, as I said earlier, our tourism and hospitality sectors have obviously been hit the hardest, and I'm unfortunately expecting tourism sector to continue to suffer for many, many months to come. I'm really not expecting any significant, recovery for tourism
until very late 2021. The reason I say that is because I was with I was having a chat to the Minister for Tourism, and his quote to me was, "There are some people who seem to think that international tourism will be back on board mid-2021, and those people are incredibly optimistic." So not only is that frightening to know, I think it's also good to know at this point in time, because it gives us enough time to actually shift our business focus for tourism businesses and actually focus on the intrastate market, which is where those businesses really need to be focusing on. Now, from our second survey, 72% of the respondents that we had indicated they were still operating in some format. For example, restaurants offering takeaway, which was really good to hear. And over 40% of businesses across the state were either sole traders or proprietary limited structure businesses, showing that majority of, the overarching majority of businesses, like we've always said, are small business. Unfortunately, 5% of all businesses who responded to these surveys indicated that they would not likely recover from this. Now, as you know, the effects on our workforce have been absolutely massive. We've seen 80% of businesses indicating a reduction in staff, and a estimated loss of over $2 million in the first week in mid-March. So that leads me to believe that the wider loss for our region alone to date would be closer to $30 million. Now, I've got to say, credit at this point in time has got to be provided to the federal government because of the raft of support packages that they announced, the main one being their Flagship JobKeeper program. 60% of respondents from all surveys indicated that they were eligible for this assistance. However, half of those respondents didn't really understand what was out there, what they were eligible for, and how they could take advantage of it, which is very understandable given the complexity of the program itself, and thus became the race for information dissemination. Now, as Veronica mentioned earlier, we did partner with the Development Commission and LXF communities to hold a workshop to discuss what the recovery should look like from a grassroots level. Now, this wasn't just aimed at business, this was more of a community discussion. So a lot of the feedback we received, which is still being, I guess, collated into a reportable format, it came from people from all walks of life and a lot of different countries outside of Australia. One of the 45 participants that were part of that workshop, the furthest one from where we are right now dialed in from Bangladesh. So it was really good to have that, I guess, scope of ideas in the room. Now, I guess from all of the survey data that I've been provided, the situation basically indicates that we're all exactly in the same boat, regardless of which regional centre we're a part of. Even the resource sectors, or centres, I should say, that have, that heavily rely on those large resource projects, they've still been very, very affected by the restrictions and COVID-19 as a whole. So, although we committed to running a third survey, we haven't. And the reason we chose not to do this came down to a few factors. The first one was the fact that a large amount of other organisations were requiring the Chamber to essentially promote their surveys. And this was actually leading to some significant survey fatigue amongst the wider business community, which was indicated across a steady decline across all participation numbers from surveys. We've seen the first one from regional chambers had close to 800 participants, the most recent one down to 200. So unfortunately, people are getting a little bit over reporting on how they're going, and they're wanting to actually get on with it. Now, I guess one of the best things to come out from all of the surveys I see and all the data is the fact that positivity is trending upwards. So we started off with close to 50% of businesses outlining that they weren't going to recover. 2 weeks ago, that increased to 76%. And I'm expecting once the final regional survey closes, regional WA that is going to increase even more so, which is good. Now, as many of you would know, there are some industries out there who have been incredibly busy at this point in time. The first one being accountants and financial professionals. And across all survey data that I've been provided, the top 4 organisations businesses have turned to for advice have been, and at the top, business accountants and their financial professionals. The second being federal government COVID-19 specific websites. The third being the ATO. And the fourth being their local chambers of commerce in their respective areas. Now, I can understand that's probably, it's all pretty dire. It doesn't sound very good. Figures are never really nice. However, the way I'm seeing it, it is going to get better.
Oh, there we go.
We here in Peel are luckily, we're actually seeing some really promising green shoots as businesses adapt and fight for survival. And many of them are actually using this time to adjust their delivery models or their services, whilst others are actually planning for actual new services and business offerings to meet the changing needs of the community. Now, like with everyone else, all of our members, the Chamber is actually a business as well. So we've also had to adapt. And one of the ways that we've adapted is we've heavily adjusted our Business Awards program for this year. We've completely changed the categories. We've also completely rewritten our criteria to be a lot more streamlined. And we've actually introduced a few new categories which are specific to this situation as a whole, what we've been in for the past 2 months. The reason we're doing that is because we want to assist businesses to actually benchmark and capture what they've done in this period of time. Many have gone through a roller coaster of emotions and I guess, different situations, but we're really wanting to help businesses learn from where they came from, what they did, where they are now, and where they want to be moving forward. Now, with that being said, we are also going to be allowing for video submissions for the first time. We've never traditionally allowed for any kind of multimedia. It's always been a written submission. However, we think it's probably best to allow businesses to put together a 10-minute video rather than 14 pages worth of, worth of submission data. Now, if we're talking about recovery, because I know that's one thing that many of you wanted to talk about, it's, from our point of view, it's a very, very complicated but interesting conversation to have, because what does recovery really look like? Are we looking at it from a community aspect, or are we talking about it from an economic aspect? From an economic aspect, I've seen all of the local governments in Peel put out some incredible plans. If they haven't already published their recovery plans, they're well on their way to putting those plans in place and getting them ready to publish. Now, the good thing is that all of the shires are learning from each other. They're all talking to each other and they're all adapting the ideas to suit their specific communities. Now, I know that the City of Mandurah has just released their Restart Mandurah project or fund, $5 million it's looking like. And it looks like it's going to be, quite a significant initiative for restarting the economy. There are some pretty good things in there. However, there are a couple of things that concern us. One of which will centre around the changes to procurement and noting the 15 new local projects that the city is bringing forward in order to stimulate the economy. Now, whilst that is very good and very admirable, we believe the only way that that's actually going to be achievable is if local small businesses and trades complete that work. If that work goes to big guys, either up in Perth, down in Bunbury, or even some national or multinational businesses, we're not really going to see the economic benefit on the ground. We're not going to see the localised employment. And unfortunately, we've learnt that from the Mandurah Bridge being built by Giorgio. So we do hope, and we are, you know, I'm not just telling you guys this, we are actually talking to the city with Reece and Mark Newman about this kind of stuff, just making sure that they understand we don't want to have another Giorgio Bridge situation. Our other concern is the waterfront redevelopment plans. Now, whilst the waterfront redevelopment on the east and western foreshore has been on the books for quite a long time, millions of dollars have gone into getting it to where it is at the moment, and it is very close to being completed. Some of the plans look phenomenal. However, my biggest concern with this is not the project itself, but what the schedule of works looks like. And from what I can see, all of the works, be it the western foreshore, the eastern foreshore down, down the bridge quarter end, or even up towards the boardwalk, all of the works that they're proposing, and the Smart Street Mall, I might say, they all seem to overlap each other in their timelines on a Gantt chart in the fourth and the first quarter of this year and next year, basically being summer. We're seeing most of the construction works. Now, I'm happy to be wrong about this. However, and this is something that the Director for Works has got to get back to me on. However, the way I'm reading their schedule, all of the construction works and all the disruption is going to happen while our businesses who have been the hardest hit are trying to make money for next winter. Traditionally, down in the city centre, hospitality and tourism businesses make as much money as they can while the sun's out, make hay while the sun shines, in order to get through the winter period. The winter is always really tough for hospitality and tourism. No one likes the rain. I don't know why, but if people don't like going out in the rain, they don't like getting wet. So to have that essentially taken away from them, again, like in 2016 when we had the foreshore extended all the way from Christmas up until past Australia Day, I can see, there are some major red flags showing there. So I'm hoping they take that in consideration. In other areas, we're seeing Serpentine Jarrahdale, Waroona, Murray and Harvey, so you can imagine a big line, all working towards revitalising the Harvest Highway project from many, many years back, which is going to be an absolutely fantastic initiative from where we sit, because it opens up opportunities for local producers and local growers. It also opens up the opportunities for food tourism. Now, we've got some of the best soil in Australia here in the Peel. So much so that our agricultural abilities can actually be seen as a political issue, because there is the opportunity for us to actually become an agricultural centre of Western Australia, which is in direct competition with Carnarvon. Now, as much as I like Carnarvon, I'm sorry, but Peel first. If we've got the best soil and we can produce the best food, let's do it. No prize for second. I think we should go ahead for it. And that's some of the work that we're hoping to see come through the Peel Business Park. So we're really hoping that the Harvest Highway can get up and running. We're also hoping that this will open up some opportunities to connect small growers with actual small grocers and stores. We're not going to see local artisan products coming out of the Peel in Coles or Woolworths anytime soon. But, to be honest, I think that's a really good thing. I'd much rather see some really unique local produce and products in places like our RGAs, like our small delis. even in places like Gilbert's down on Mandurah Road. That's what I'd like to see, and that's what I'd like to, you know, come out of the Harvest Highway. Now, I think, you know, in the interest of time, I don't want to banter on for any much longer. I'd much rather answer some questions that you might have, or, you know, open up the discussion.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Andrew.
Sure.
So you've said that tourism obviously is one of the greatest impacted areas, and so I'm wondering then, are there any areas of opportunity, but also off the back of that, areas where small businesses could support the Mandurah community? Is there anything in there you see that might, you know, those of us that are running our own businesses, you know, is there any particular need out there that we could meet?
I think on face value, from a community point of view, as a whole, not from just businesses, but everyone, I think what we could all do as a community would be actually go out and holiday in your own hometown. So utilize those tourism services that you usually wouldn't. So, you know, many of you may have a boat, you may know someone with a boat. I'm pretty sure it's much better to know someone with a boat than it is to own a boat. But if you're one of the people who knows the person, hire a boat from one of the local local operators, or go out on a cruise with, you know, the Pirate Boat or on Mandurah Cruises. You may actually see some stuff that you wouldn't usually, and also, you know, you're helping to keep local people employed. And you're also helping to keep a small business going. That's essentially, it's been my message, and it will continue to be my message for quite a while. Right now, those businesses are the ones that we always call on. We're always going to those guys, you know, whether you're a not-for-profit group or whether you're a sporting club, you always find that tourism businesses are always the ones being called upon to provide, you know, vouchers and sponsor things. Whereas now's really the time for them to call in the favour, and they really need our sponsorship. I hope that helps. That answers your question. I guess probably another way would be, if there's an opportunity, depending on your industry and what your profession is to partner with one of those tourism or hospitality businesses and help to put together some kind of package offering. I have seen, you know, some people in tourism say, oh, that old chestnut, but I actually am seeing some businesses come together and start to do that. You know, a cruise, dinner, movie deal, or a tour to a winery that involves probably, you know, I've actually seen I've seen a tour to a couple of wineries that includes a method actor, so incorporating someone from the arts to keep them entertained on the bus, on, you know, while they go around to Peel Estate and Millbrook and, you know, all of those ways.
So I guess there's some real opportunities for collaborations, I guess. Yeah. Thanks, Andrew.
Definitely. Yep.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Paul, go ahead.
Andrew, you said the 4 top places people went for advice during this time was accountants and financial advisors, government, COVID sites, ATO, and then local chamber and commerce and industry.
Yeah.
How much push do you guys have? Like, all I hear is it's medical that makes decisions on when everything opens up. But how much push do you guys have with helping everything open up quicker than normal, or moving forward rather than being really, you know, we're sitting and waiting for all these people to tell us what to do?
Unfortunately, because of the community aspect, and I guess the health aspect, the state government is taking a lot of their direction from the chief medical advisor. However, with that being said, we've made it very, very clear, not only to the Premier, but also to the Prime Minister, that firstly, the only way to restart our economy and to stop us bleeding billions of dollars a day is to get people back working at full capacity. And I've just written a response to the Mandurah Mail saying exactly that, saying, you know, if you want to be serious about economic recovery, get back to it as soon as you possibly can, but within reason. Unfortunately, you know, today was meant to be a really, I guess, big day for businesses reopening. However, having a maximum of 20 people in a closed off space, let's just say like a pub or a restaurant, it really, for some, it's going to work very, very well. For others, it's not going to be financially feasible.
Wow.
So they're going to wait. And we have found that a lot of our operators are actually waiting until phase 2 before they reopen. I do recall in the week between, I think it was the 15th of March, we wrote to Andrew Hastie, Josh Frydenberg and Scott Morrison, and we also CC'd in Mark McGowan and made it very clear that we are in no way in favour of the government shutting down any kind of hospitality businesses by force. We were definitely in favour. Now, things have changed considerably since then. We know that. But at that point in time, we weren't in favour of the government coming in saying, you have to close your business. You have to, you know, you are not able to make any kind of income. Now, like I said, a lot's changed since then. They did do that. However, we wanted to put our foot down at the start and say, we know you're thinking about it, but we're not going to support it. Funnily enough, an hour after sending that letter off, I get a call from the Development Commission CEO saying, where'd you get this information from? Which was an indication that the government was considering it. However, we got the supposed tip-off from a restaurateur in Sydney. And we didn't want to see that happen here.
Yeah, tough decisions have to be made. So, or had to be made at that stage.
Yeah.
Just a quick question. I think you mentioned, I've written down on my notes that that your data showed that 5% of businesses indicated that they would not recover. Do you have any more detail about those? Were those businesses of any particular industry type, any particular size? Were they, say, startups versus established businesses? Was there any other data attached to those ones, to that statistic?
The only reoccurring factor within those who indicated that they wouldn't recover were, unfortunately, they were smaller businesses and they were bricks and mortar businesses.
Yeah. So those that had, commitments maybe in regards to commercial leases and things like that?
Yeah, much larger overheads. And that's one thing that, we've seen, like with Virgin, one thing that we've seen quite a bit of nationally is the smaller businesses, like the single operators, like, the, tradies who may have one or two tradesmen and an apprentice, they're actually faring a lot better than some of those larger businesses with a lot more commitments. Because they're able to adapt a lot quicker.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Other questions? No.
Hi.
Everyone's had enough information. Oh, Paul's got one.
We'll throw one in
Paul?
on the table.
Hey, Trina.
Andrew, hello, Trina. You said, the 5%, they were more, I suppose, people with a larger overheads, and it's a very good example of any crisis situation when it comes to business. Virgin, look at them, they looked healthy, didn't they? But really, they just had massive loans, debts.
Yeah.
They needed that continual income to keep on going. But it's a very good example of if you have got to have an exit strategy, or you can't overdo it when it comes to having too much debt. It's easier to say, but geez, Virgin looked as though they were pretty good, didn't they, really? Why is Qantas still going? Must have less debt than Virgin, you know. It's,
yeah.
It's amazing.
Isn't Virgin really going to get bailed out, actually, aren't they?
That's yet to be seen. There's been a couple of, I guess, rumours about, you know, I've heard the Queensland government's putting in a bid. I've heard there's Chinese investment firm that is very interested. And I've also heard that a couple of, I've heard of 2 mining magnates who are interested in doing something in that space, but there's nothing, you know, nothing that really stands out. To your point, Paul, I guess the businesses that, you know, within that 5%, those businesses I've seen, you know, actually just looking at their names, they've got large overheads, they're very cash flow dependent, and they're operating on extremely minimal margins. So there's no financial margin of error there. And most of them, unfortunately, were operating within the hospitality space.
Yeah, well, that's a huge industry in our region, isn't it? And
yeah,
I think I've always said to anybody, if you want to start a business in Mandurah, make sure it's a cafe, because we seem to be very good at supporting cafes. But I would imagine, well, we saw what happened just in such a short space of time. You know, all of a sudden, all of our favourite cafes were just not open, not there. So it's been very interesting just in the last couple of weeks, I think, since the announcement about schools going back and kids going back to schools and things like that, that it seemed to really sort of release a lot of people from that sense of restriction. And I've even noticed just being at home, you know, the traffic noise has increased and there's so many more cars on the road. And so you can see there's a lot of activity. So I guess the positive impact of that on the economy in the region will start to show as well. So yeah, that's really good.
Definitely.
I just had a comment that I wanted to make, and I did make a sort of a brief reference to it in the chat there, but what you were saying about the development, you know, the Mandurah investing in that infrastructure and creating, I guess, opportunities, employment opportunities and et cetera, you know, for our people in the community. But I totally agree with you. I think that, they're really going to need to think that through. I know a lot of businesses that were involved in the Rockingham foreshore development, whose business was affected by the Rockingham foreshore development. And it was really quite, although it may not have affected a lot of businesses, the ones that were affected were impacted greatly by that. And so I guess there's an opportunity to make sure that we don't actually, end up making it worse rather than, like the solution may end up becoming the problem type of thing. So do you think as the PLCCI will be able to have some influence over how that works? Or will they listen, do you think?
I think they will. The reason I say that is because, my board's furious about it. Considering that many
about our waterfront, is it? Is this about our waterfront?
Yeah, Mandurah. Yeah.
They've looked at the timeline, they've looked at the project plans, and their thoughts are that it's just ridiculous. Considering that many of those businesses along the foreshore suffered exponentially during the last upgrades.
Yeah.
The really tricky part is a lot of people can say, and I don't want to get caught in this trap when having the conversation with the cities, because it's been said to me is why didn't we do all of these upgrades in March and April when everyone was at home? Unfortunately, we're talking about, an overall $17 million project, and bringing forward those works very quickly is a very, very difficult job to do. It's good that they are bringing the works forward. They've got to be commended for that. However, our massive concern here is that we're going to see out-of-town construction firms doing the work, sending local cafes and small retail to the dust.
Yeah, no, you got to make sure, Andrew, you got to keep on that can't happen. I mean, having the capacity to open up tenders and have local businesses involved is great. And hopefully they've done their homework around the fact that the Peel region actually does have the capacity in terms of its resources to be able to do that. Some of those project works are quite large. And so I think that's where the trap is that if we don't have businesses that are scaled enough to be able to supply that, then it ends up going outside of the region. And therefore, the city might get the work done and they might get it done quicker, and it might feel really good that it's all happening. It'll seem productive and it will seem like there's lots of people involved. But if it's not local people, then it hasn't really met the outcomes that it was designed to. So, I think we need to talk with them about that.
There is a solution around that, and I think this ultimately comes down to a systemic culture, or systemic issues within the procurement culture, and that is, there's always been a massive focus on price. It's got to be the best value. It's got to be the most affordable quote or the most affordable price, because we are, as I put it to Reese, you're accountable to 85,000 residents. However, at the end of the day, and this is my experience from working in that space in Queensland, it's a race to the bottom. The lowest price doesn't necessarily mean the best job. The lowest price usually means more variations, which over time costs a lot more money. The second issue is that, if we're talking about capacity, we do have a major issue with capacity. We don't have a lot of tier one contractors within the region. We do have one, and that's Wormel Civil. Thankfully, Wormel Civil has won all of the civil works being done at the Peel Business Park, the latest project being 14 million. So congratulations to those guys. That is being done by, a business in Carter, just up the road.
And I know from personal experience with them, they do look after the local community, in terms of employees, trainees, apprentices, etc. They really do support local young people in that company, because it's a local family-owned company. So they are fabulous. Definitely.
And I think that was the best. That was the best part when they first won. When they won the first contract, is I know that like Fulton Hogan and Downer, they weren't very happy about losing that civils contract for about $8 million. But the thing is Wormel uses so many local subbies and they employ so many local people. They really hit the nail on the head when they completed their WA participation plan. When it comes to the smaller, I guess, the projects on the waterfront, yes, okay, going back to capacity, we may not have the capacity for the current contract that's put out there, but I do think it should be upon the local governments who are putting these contracts out to actually carve them up a little bit. We've talked about job carving before. Why can't we have contract carving? It's not a new concept. And through doing that, that gives us a really good opportunity to build localized capacity within our trades community. So, if let's just say for Crabfest, we need 20 pink tents built to you know, some kind of specific specification to deal with wind. We don't have one party hire that has 20 pink tents, but why can't we pull them all together in some kind of consortium in order to source that, and then we have that infrastructure for years to come?
Yeah.
Consortiums in that aspect are starting to, I guess, become a little bit popular, or becoming an option. Like the Bunbury Outer Ring Road project, we're seeing quite a large consortium being put together down there in order to deliver, you know, what is a multi-million-dollar project, and breaking it down into about 17 different smaller aspects that smaller contractors can definitely do.
Yeah, that sounds like a good way to approach it. So I guess that, hopefully that will be something that can be coordinated and happen. So that puts quite a positive kind of light on what that future might look like, for sure.
Definitely. And same with the Peel Business Park, you know, stage 2 is going to be released very, very soon. And they're, you know, now that majority of the overarching civils are being done, or they're going to be completed by Wormel, there's going to be much smaller projects that are able to be done. Unfortunately, I have seen some contracts that require some, you know, I guess some ridiculous services that don't even make sense. You've got a, you know, you've got a landscaping and retic company, and on their contract, they're required to hook up the water and also put in the main switchboard for a business park. That's not work that a retic company should be doing. That's a, you know, that's a HV electrical project. So why not split that up into 3 jobs? Like plumbers deal with water corp. Retic guys don't. So, you know, I'd like to see a real shift in that procurement space. On the plus side, though, the Treasurer, Ben White, introduced a bill, the 2020 procurement bill, into Parliament last week, which is hopefully going to be addressing some of those issues.
Awesome. So just to wind up, because I'm very conscious of time and everybody probably wanting and needing to get back to their evening, Andrew, can you just give us a very quick summary of what the Peel Chamber is doing at the moment? I know you mentioned that there's some changes to the annual awards. Will there actually be a gathering of some description? And what else have you got planned in terms of events, and the way that the Peel Chamber is planning to support the community over the coming weeks and months?
Okay, so really good question. Firstly, business awards. We're going to be splitting the process, or I guess the awards process itself, into 2 separate aspects. The first, we're going to be delivering the awards presentation online via a live stream. So the sponsors that we have are being invited to provide a video presentation, and then they will be live announcing the runners-up and the winners. Unfortunately, we can't, you know, provide everyone with a 3D printer to print a trophy, so we're going to be holding on to those. And at a point in time where we can get about 200 people together, we're going to hold a cocktail event, which is going to be a combination of, you know, those presentations, but a lot, you know, quicker. Whereas, you know, because we know who's going to be the winner and the runner-up, so we can have the sponsor there delivering them the trophy, but also more of a celebration, bringing, you know, allowing us to all actually get together in large groups. I'm not sure when that's going to be. I'd like to think that it would be in late October or November, looking at the projected timelines from the government. However, we haven't planned it as of yet because we're waiting on, you know, that kind of guidance. I guess from a physical networking point of view, we are putting plans in place to be able to hold something in July, just getting through, I guess, phase 1 and phase 2 of the WA government's road to recovery. And hopefully in July, if we keep going well, we're going to be at a point where we can get, you know, 40 to 60 people together in a room.
Fantastic.
Once that happens, then we'll be able to continue on with our, you know, our scheduled events program. We are looking at holding some smaller workshops, you know, 10 to 20 people maximum. The first of which we're looking at holding some intensive chamber-specific boot camps in Serpentine Jarrahdale for the businesses in SJ. And we're also working with the Development Commission on having some, I guess, targeted WA local government and state government procurement workshops for, for under 20 people in June, July.
Fantastic. So that's something we can all look out for, and we do promote the Peel Chamber events, etc., through our group, because many of us are members of the Peel Chamber as well. So we'll keep doing that, and I guess we'll just stay updated and connected in with what everybody's doing and offering as that changes and adapts according to the changes that are occurring in the wider community. So that's fantastic. Thank you everybody for being with us this evening. In a fortnight's time, 2 weeks this evening, we will have Christy Tonkin from the Peel Development Commission. She'll be joining us and providing a bit more of an update on what's happening around the region from the Peel Development Commission's perspective and where they're at the moment. So look out for the promotion of that one. However, the Zoom link is the same as we have been using. So you just need to make sure you keep hold of that and you'll be able to join us. And I think that's the Monday, the 8th of June, or is that?
It's the 1st.
Okay, so what we've done is we've actually carried it over. So it'll be 3 weeks tonight, because the 1st of June is a long weekend. So the 8th of June will be the next presentation. And then following that, we should have Rhys Williams on board. So he's agreed to also meet with us during one of these events. We've just got to confirm the date for that one. So we're looking forward to that. And keep in touch with us through the group and through our email system, as well as through our Facebook page, because we'll be keeping you up to date on all of the events that will be happening over the coming months, including, as I mentioned right at the beginning, and for those of you that joined us a little bit late, the Startup Huddle podcast, which will be launched very soon as well, where we'll be offering the opportunity for our past presenters. They'll be getting first option to record a podcast with Dave and myself, and then from there we'll be inviting others to join us as well. So look out for that invitation. So thanks very much everyone for joining us this evening. It was great to see you all, and I look forward to catching you again, whether it's online or in person, hopefully in the not too distant future. And once again, just a big thanks to Andrew for taking the time to join us. I know you've probably been super busy over the last number of weeks. So we really do appreciate the fact that you've joined us here this evening to give us that update, which was really valuable. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Monica.
See you later, everybody. We'll catch you next time.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Have a good week.
You too.